Here is a quick tutorial on how to find the equation of a sinusoidal function if you're given a graph. So the first thing that you want to look for is your maximum and your minimum, because your max and your min are going to help you to solve for a few things. So max in this case is 5, because that is the highest point that it reaches on my y-axis. And my minimum is down here at 1. Okay, so once you have your max and your min, from there we can find our amplitude. So our amplitude, of course, is A. It's the number that's out front of our equation. And to find your amplitude, you're going to take your max minus your min and divide by 2. In this case, 5 minus 1 divided by 2, which is 4 over 2, which is 2. So I have an amplitude of 2. All right, the next thing that we can solve for is our C value. So your C value is your sinusoidal axis. It's the line at which it cuts your graph in half. And to figure that out, we can take our max plus our min and divide by 2. So 5 plus 1 divided by 2, which equals 6 over 2, which equals 3. So now we have our C value. All right, the next thing we're going to figure out is our period. So we're going to go back to our graph, take a look to see the length of time according to our x-axis, so the number of degrees it takes for a whole cycle to occur. So let's say I was going to use this cycle right here where it starts at 0 and it goes up and then it goes down to here. And I can see then that it takes 180 degrees in order to reach there. Now, I didn't have to use that one. I could actually, let's say I started up top here and I go down and I go back up. So I can read off of my graph, starts at 90 degrees and then all the way over here, which is at 270. So again, between 90 and 270 is 180 degrees. So it doesn't matter which cycle you choose, but that's what you're looking for, is the length of one cycle. Okay, so we've determined that the length of one cycle is 180 degrees. To figure out what you're going to put inside of your equation, you're going to do 360 divided by one cycle. Okay, and we said it was 180 degrees for one cycle to occur, so 360 divided by 180, which is going to give me 2. So that is going to be the number that we're going to put in. And then the last thing we're looking for, which is D, is our phase shift. Now, our phase shift all depends on the type of equation that we're going to write. So let's say I'm going to write a cos equation. Let's say I'm just going to decide that. We're going to write a cos equation. So I'm going to look for where my first maximum occurs, because cos starts high, goes low, and then goes high again. So I can see right here is where my maximum is. And it occurs, if I go down, I can see right there, it's at 90 degrees. So that's going to be my phase shift, is 90 degrees for this cosine graph. All right. So now I need to put all my information into my cosine function. So y equals a, which is 2, cos b, which is my period, was 2, x minus 90 degrees, which is my phase shift, plus c, and c was 3. So there's my equation. Now let's say I wanted to write a sine equation or a negative cos equation. So I didn't have to pick cos. I could have picked negative cos. If I picked negative cos, then I probably want to take a look at the graph that starts here and it goes up and down. Okay, so that's kind of like an opposite cos, right? Because cos starts high, goes low, then high. This one started low, then high, then low. So that's a negative cos. So notice if I use a negative cos, it starts right here on my y-axis. So that means my phase shift is 0 for a negative cos graph. So then that equation would look like this: negative 2 cos 2x plus 3. Look how I didn't have to put in a phase shift because that negative cos started right there on the x or on the y axis. Same thing if I wanted to do a sine graph. So if I was going to look to do a sine graph, I'd look to be where my sinusoidal axis is, because sine always starts, and I know I'm off of it here, but sine always starts right on your sinusoidal axis, and then it goes up and down and up. And of course, I'd want to see where that falls, and that would fall at 45 degrees. It would fall halfway between 0 and 90, so at 45 degrees. So if I wanted to write a sine graph, then I would use a d value of 45 degrees. And then notice how your amplitude does not change. Your period does not change. Only the phase shift changes depending on the equation that you want to write. So there's 3 different equations for the same graph. Okay, but what if you're not given a graph? What if you're just given like information? So suppose that I told you that we have a maximum at 90, 5, and you have a minimum at 270, 3. All right, so I want to show you that you actually have just enough information within those 2 points to go ahead and solve all your stuff. So the way to do it is draw a graph. So 90, 180, 270, say 5 is here, we'll say 3 is here. All right, so I wanted to show you that we actually have enough information. So 90 and 5 is here, 270 is 3 and down here. So what we have is half of a graph, right? We only have this line going down. So we know, like with cos, we need a line going up. So I'm going to keep going then. I'm going to continue on my axes here. And that means if I went 180 degrees to go down, then I need to go another 180 degrees to go back up to 5. All right. And then now look at this. Now I have enough information. There's enough of a graph here for me to write an equation. I can see that I can figure out my amplitude, remember, is max minus min divided by 2. So 5 minus 3 divided by 2. I can figure out my C value by going max plus min divided by 2. So 5 plus 3 divided by 2, which is 8 over 2, which is 4. So that makes sense because 4 is right in the middle. And then B, if it took 180 degrees for this half, and then it would take another 180 degrees to get the other half, that means it's 360 degrees, 360 between here and here, 360 degrees. So to figure out what I'm going to put inside of my function, I'm going to go 360 divided by 360, which is 1. All right, and the last thing to determine is my D value. So my D value, I see that I have a maximum, I was told right here, I have a maximum right here at 90, 5. So this is where we can start, we can look at this graph right here as the cos graph. Starts high, goes low, then goes high again. And it occurs at 90 degrees. So my cos graph starts there at 90 degrees. So y equals, my amplitude is 1 cos, my period is 1, and then x minus 90 plus 4. I hope this helps. Try drawing your graphs. That will always help you out. Reach out if you have any more questions.